Hey everyone. Ever wondered what would happen if Izuku Midoriya was rescued by 6 mysterious widows from the future? Join us as we explore this thrilling what-if scenario and uncover the twists that await in this epic adventure. Before the war ended, her name was Yaoyorozu Momo. But still, she's the heroine Krichi. Now, she owns Yaoyorozu Corporation. She asks anyone who knows her secret identity to call her Midoriya Momo. Her best friend used to be Jiro Kyoka. Nowadays, she's a famous Japanese rocker who has broken language and country barriers, being known in Europe. Like her friend, she demands to be called Midoriya Kyoka now, known as the heroine number 6, Earphone Jack. Then there was the heroine Froppy, named Isu Tsuyu, who followed in Momo and Kyoka's footsteps, admitting she was in love with Midoriya Izuku, the hero DEKU, now deceased. She asked her friend Momo for help to found a rescue and first aid academy in areas at risk of naval sinking. Naval Rescue Academy, Midoriya. Ashido Mina, the heroine Pinky, is in the top 10 of heroes of the moment, occupying top 3, trying to focus on her work as much as possible, not thinking about how Japan's cities were rebuilt and how many lives were lost during the paranormal war. Midoriya Mina. Tokage Setsuna, owner of the Midoriya Security Company. Specialized in providing insurance, private security, protection against identity theft, and personal security products to common people. Behind the scenes, she is one of Japan's top spies. Midoriya Setsuna. And finally, but not least, Yanagi Reiko, paranormal researcher and writer of horror stories. She presented physical and compelling evidence to the international scientific community of the existence of spirits and cryptids. And Midoriya Reiko. Everyone knew them. There wasn't a day when they weren't seen in magazines or newspapers. They were the most influential women in the country, in business, economics, or heroism. They publicly called themselves the 6 Widows. And despite their various successes, they always seemed sad. They always answered the same when asked why their eyes didn't shine despite all their achievements and fame. My only failure was not being able to save the life of the man I came to love, Midoriya Izuku. But this was about to change. Thanks to a call from Mina to the other 5, meeting with 4 of them, to meet at the Katsudon restaurant. The only one who didn't answer the calls was Momo. This surprised the other 5, as they always met, and Momo was almost always the one who called the others. They looked at each other, and without Momo answering their calls or text messages, they decided to go see her in person, getting into their cars or motorcycles and heading to Yaoyorozu Corporation, wondering why their colleague and practically harem leader wasn't answering their calls. It didn't take them long to get to Yaoyorozu Corporation. They were known as friends of the company's general manager, so they were allowed to enter. The receptionist said Momo wasn't in the office and showed them on the camera panel that she was in the research and development laboratory. So they made their way there, wearing suits and lab coats, passing through the 3 doors until they reached something very similar to a hadron accelerator, but it was different at the same time. She got up from under the accelerator, climbed some stairs on the side, and placed some nuts on a metal sphere hanging above the accelerator. The doors opened, and she saw her colleagues coming in, making her sigh. "Hello, girls, welcome to Project Chrono." "Project Chrono?" Kyoka asked, looking at the object. Momo smiled. "Yes. I know who you're thinking of, Kronos, the father of the 6 Olympians, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia. He is the titan of harvest and calendar. But, on the other hand, there's the primordial of the same name, Chrono. He is the primordial of time, also called Eon. Well, girls, this machine is not a way to travel through time, but it will guide our consciousness and souls to our 5-year-old selves. I can't go back further than that." "Will we go back in time to become friends with Izuku-kun?" Setsuna asked, hopeful and with shining eyes. Momo nodded. Izuku was very lonely in the early years of his life. She stroked her biceps with sorrow for what the man she came to love experienced. "Is that your plan? To be his friends, then his girlfriends, and finally, in adulthood, wives, by saving his life?" A smile adorned Momo's beautiful face, which, at that moment, showed how little she had really slept that week. Or perhaps a year. They didn't know how long Momo had been building this time machine. She put her hand in her pocket, as if looking for something. "It's not just about going back in time, it's also about rejuvenating a lot. I know exactly where Izuku lived at age 6. So I'm going to inject him with this." She pulled out of her pocket an object resembling a thick silver pen. They all raised an eyebrow and waited for an explanation. "The nanobots contained here will modify Izuku's DNA. If he had a quirk, then they will awaken it. Otherwise, they have a special signal too. Give it to him, she sighed and seemed to lose all her courage and desire to continue with this plan. They all looked at her strangely. Did they hear correctly? How could Momo give Izuku a quirk if the only one who could do that, all for one, was dead? I know. We know that Izuku became a hero by saving Bakugo and with All Might seeing his selfless action towards Izuku. That led All Might to give him one for all, but if I can prevent my husband from breaking his bones, then I will prevent it. It will be easy for Izuku to say he's a late bloomer, Tsuyu said, with a finger on her chin and in a thoughtful pose, crossing her arms and legs. That's not strange in society. What quirk will you give him? Momo frowned for a moment. I tried to replicate the quirks of One for All, but I barely achieved anything. I tried to recreate super strength, but every test was negative. So I changed the focus of genetic modification and used what I did have at hand. Everything that in my experiments was giving me a result, and I ended up creating something I called Vampire. Every blow Izuku can land on his enemy will fatigue his opponent. They all opened their eyes, amazed by such an artificial quirk. The second or. The next two are a repulsion and propulsion force, which will allow Izuku to fly. In theory, it would be flying. Although it's more like a repulsion field, and then he propels himself forward, and finally, a copy of his Black Whip quirk. Okay, then, Tsuyu interrupted, applauding, excited about the idea of seeing her husband again, saving his life, and giving him his own quirk. She didn't realize that the plan involved reliving their childhood, going through kindergarten, elementary school, high school, before returning to UA. How do we do this? We'll leave right now, go back to the apartment, and stage an assassination attempt on ourselves, Momo explained, making her colleagues open their eyes. We'll come back here using these watches. They all grabbed one. It's more than just invisibility, they'll also reflect our surroundings like a mirror, making us undetectable because you'll remember how the light bent around Hagakure, clearly showing her figure and not just because of floating clothes. Then, we'll take the suits that are there. She pointed to the front, where the girls found 6 suits that looked very tight and resembled astronaut suits. We'll stand on that platform. She pointed to the metal circle. And my AI will take care of the rest. The 6 hours they waited until night were torture for them, who just wanted to see their husband again. But soon, they were on the platform, wearing the special uniforms. The machine was activated by Momo's AI, and all the girls saw a violet light that blinded them, as the energy went out in the city and they disappeared, leaving behind only a trace of radiation, along with the silhouettes of their shoes, showing that the platform had some burned areas. Momo had been right. And upon realizing that it was real, that each of the 6 was in their respective bodies at the age of 5, Kyoka, Tsuyu, Mina, Setsuna, and Reiko knew they would have to apologize to her. They checked their phone clocks and found it was too early. But they also found an email message. It was a message from Momo. It worked, even better than I expected. Reiko, are you trying to tell us you didn't know if it would succeed or fail? Tsuyu, you say it worked better? Then the plan is still on. Momo, that's right, girls. The plan is still on. I finished the time translation machine 3 years ago, but it took me longer to get our minds sent to these bodies. Don't worry about our real bodies. Mina, what did you do to our real bodies? Momo, they are in something similar to cryogenic suspension, but within the space-time vortex that brought our minds to these bodies. Kyoka, so what's the plan? Setsuna, Izuku once told me, when we were in our second year of high school, that he lived in Musutafu and used to play with Katsuki in a playground. The only one in the area. Momo, I just modified some virtual reality glasses and made a miniature drone equipped with a remote-controlled syringe that will inject the exobytes into Izuku, granting him his quirks, and this drone has a holographic projector. I will guide the drone to his house, inject him, and when he wakes up, I will activate the projector. I will appear to him as some kind of deity in his eyes, explaining that I have granted him several quirks, that he must learn to use them, and be a great hero. And from there, they could only wait for Momo to communicate with them again. The wait was long and unbearable. Kyoka squeezed her sheets tightly. It was 5:56 a.m. and it wasn't as if she could leave her house or something like, I'm going to go to a park to be bullied by a jerk who doesn't deserve to be a hero, who made my husband's life impossible, to meet him again. Dasu Shidaisu Apartment Complex, Apartment 702. Izuku remembered the day his life fell apart, a year ago. The day all his dreams of becoming a superhero who would save everyone like All Might crumbled. Memory. Izuku and his mother were before an elderly doctor, bald and with a big mustache. He always wore very large glasses that made him stand out. That will never happen, it would be better if you give up now. Is there something wrong with him, doctor? Inko asked. Other children his age have already manifested their quirks. Right here, you can see it on this X-ray, the man showed Izuku's foot X-ray. Your son has these two joints here, and that only means he's quirkless. If he didn't have them, he would have some kind of quirk, and I could tell you what it is. End of memory. Izuku opened his eyes after that nightmare and squeezed the sheets, feeling his cheek dampened by tears and the memory that he could never be a hero. A memory, Katsuki's mocking voice, who stopped being his friend and became his personal bully. You're just a DEKU. He squeezed the sheets, just feeling a much stronger sting than that of a regular mosquito bite. Ouch. He got up at that and waved his hand to shoo away the mosquito, then a light appeared before him, and the hologram of a woman with black hair, a veil over her face, and a dress covering her chest, leaving long sleeves with studs visible. Midoriya Izuku, do not fear, Momo's voice was modified thanks to the microphone she used to speak to him. I am the spirit of justice, I am. Nectaria. Her name meant peach, and Nectaria is very similar physically to the peach. You have been chosen to bear. She realized then that she didn't know what to call it. To bear, the third element. The third element? Izuku asked slowly. I don't think I understand any of this. Nectaria-san. We were the ones who granted quirks to humanity, said Momo, trying to maintain the air of being spiritual. What you identified as a prick is the external medium, to grant you the third element. 3 superhuman abilities that you must learn by yourself. The first element is called vampire, every blow you land on your enemy will tire them out. Izuku nodded, thinking it was the opposite of All Might's quirk. The second element is 2-in-1, propulsion and repulsion, to push away or pull something towards you. Momo smiled at her husband under the veil. If you are as imaginative and analytical as I've been seeing, then eventually, you will know how to fly despite lacking wings. Izuku nodded, starting to think of ways to use these new abilities that this spiritual being was entrusting him with. And finally, the whip. It can be the most complicated to manifest or the simplest, if you learn to use it. To adhere to any object and surface, and it can be manipulated in any way. Being useful for capturing enemies and increasing the user's movement. It's all in your emotions and in your head. A clear head and strong emotions will make you become what this world desperately needs, a symbol of justice, not one of peace. The hologram turned off, leaving Izuku with a sense of having been in the presence of a superior or spiritual being. Just as Momo wanted. When Izuku got out of bed, he still couldn't believe it was possible, but he asked his mother for an explanation of how she used her medium object attraction ability. Izuku amazed Inko when she saw that her son was even more powerful than her, with this quirk that manifested overnight. They were practicing, but Izuku confused his mother a bit when he showed that he could repel things. By accidentally repelling the pot with the katsudon. Then, he decided to go to the park to see if he could train a little and play. Upon arrival, he saw Katsuki and his other 2 friends bothering someone, so Izuku ran and stood between the explosive child, the long-fingered boy, and the bat-winged boy, with his arms outstretched. That's enough, said the green-haired child, standing between the 3 bullies and the short-haired violet girl they were bothering. It's very cruel, Kachan. I won't allow you to bully others without doing anything. Katsuki started laughing and clapped his right hand against his left palm, releasing some explosions. You don't have a quirk, so. Don't think you're a hero, you're just a DEKU. When they tried to advance, they were thrown backward. Wow. Did you push us? Asked Katsuki surprised, from the ground. Like the opposite of Inko's quirk? One of Katsuki's friends stepped forward, Izuku took a step back and pushed him away again. Then he remembered Nectaria's words. Memory. And finally, the whip. It can be the most complicated to manifest or the simplest, if you learn to use it, to adhere to any object and surface, and it can be manipulated in any way. Being useful for capturing enemies and increasing the user's movement. It's all in your emotions and in your head. A clear head and strong emotions will make you become what this world desperately needs, a symbol of justice, not one of peace. End of memory. Izuku sighed, but instead of searching his emotions, he looked for some kind of power button, thinking of whips, managing to manifest 6 limbs, perhaps similar to tentacles, which caught the long fingers of one of the boys and made them run away scared. Kyoko was amazed that her husband could manifest that power so easily. She didn't even realize she was talking to him until she felt a hand on her shoulder, shaking her. Hey, are you listening? He asked. Are you okay? Kyoko blushed. Yes, I'm fine, She realized she almost slipped. They still, supposedly, didn't know each other, she shouldn't call him by his name just like that since the only thing she had heard so far was that damn nickname DEKU. What's your name? Izuku blushed, realizing he hadn't introduced himself to the short-haired violet girl. Oh, yes, of course, he couldn't help but laugh as he scratched the back of his head. Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku. She smiled. I'm Jiro Kyoka, nice to meet you. I hope we meet again, Kyoka-chan, said the little boy, blushing. Please, call me Kyoka, Izuku-kun, she said, and I think you deserve a reward for being my hero today. She kissed him on the cheek, causing him to blush. Oh, of course, Kyoka-chan, he stammered, terribly blushing. I hope we meet again soon. Kyoka, I met him today and he defended me from Bakugo. Momo, Tsuyu, Mina, Setsuna, and Reiko, I envy you right now, Kyoka. Midoriya. Kyoka, I'll come back to the park next weekend to see if I can find him again and help him with his quirks. Momo, enjoy the time you'll spend with him now that you're kids, because when we all meet, we'll be teenagers, and you know well that boys are invaded by hormones, so he'll be looking at me. Kyoka, Tsuyu, Mina, Setsuna, and Reiko, is that a threat? Momo, it's a warning, but take it as you want. I have two big reasons for Izuku to look at me. Kyoka returned to Musetafu Park to see if she could meet Izuku again. The last thing she wanted was another problem with Kachan, and while she couldn't change her hair color or her jacks, she hid them with her jacket while scanning the area for a boy with unruly green hair. She was more than ready to defend herself against Kachan if he was there again, but she couldn't spot him anywhere. That allowed her to breathe a sigh of relief and relax a bit, but as the professional hero she was, she didn't let her guard down completely and kept looking. Here comes the great king of killer explosions, said a childish voice. Kyoka looked in that direction, pulled out her phone, and recorded it. Katsuki pretending to be a superhero, Izuku with his hands tied like a hostage, and the red-eyed blonde releasing an explosion to free Izuku and burning his hands. Kyoka saved the video, sent it to her friends, and soon Momo showed it to her mother, the video of her friend being mistreated by another child while playing. Being the Yaoyorozu family so powerful in all of Japan, Momo's mother would send the video to her own phone and then to the prosecutor's office, as a case of school bullying and misuse of a quirk by a minor. The violet-haired girl tightened her phone. Why? Why did an innocent, smiling child with a hero's spirit end up associating with a thug like Bakugo Katsuki? She looked at Izuku, who stayed behind the other kids, and sighing, she approached him. She put a hand on his shoulder, and just with the contact, he woke up from his daydream. Didn't I see you the other day? Izuku asked, looking at the girl touching his shoulder. You're Jiro or something, right? Then, she woke up startled, realizing she was in front of Izuku, she blushed. Why yes. I'm Kyoka. Jiro Kyoka, she introduced herself again, now fully aware. And you are? Midori Izuku? The green-haired boy couldn't help but laugh a little. Midoriya, Izuku, he corrected, still smiling, while thanking mentally. At least she called me Izuku and not DEKU. Do you want to go to the park and play something less violent? Kyoka asked, making an effort not to blush. Izuku smiled and nodded. When Izuku didn't awaken his quirk, Kachan and his other friends began to call Izuku DEKU, which means useless, and when they played, he always ended up being the hostage, while Kachan was the hero and very violent. The green-haired boy loved peace and tranquility, so he tried to go to quieter, friendlier places, and this girl named Kyoka seemed to share his love for nature. Izuku was fascinated by heroes and quirks, as well as how the latter worked. Kyoka was fascinated by music and wanted to fight against evil, literally. And now that Izuku miraculously had a quirk, they spent the afternoon playing, sharing childhood anecdotes, and discovering what the green-haired boy could do with his quirk. It was nice for Izuku to have a more wholesome friendship. This time, we won't allow you to sacrifice yourself in the final battle against All for One, Kyoka swore as she walked away. After playing and getting to know her beloved, the six of us will be by your side, we'll make sure you survive. That you can be the hero you're meant to be. Because, of all of Class 1A, you were the only one who had the heart of a true hero. You no longer have to carry the legacy and destiny of One for All on your back, now you have your own quirks, show us what you're worth and how you'll use them. Our emerald love. For Inko, Kyotoku, and Mika, seeing their children together was wonderful. Izuku and Kyoka used to be rather solitary kids, one interested in heroes and the other in music, but now they were friends. Due to work, the Jiro family moved near the Midoriyas, and Mika began teaching little Izuku to play the electric guitar. This gave Izuku a new hobby and helped him grow personally while distancing himself from Bakugo. The news showed a video of Izuku being bullied, faces blurred, but Momo used a device she made, hacked into the news, and removed the censorship, revealing the faces of the bullies and victims, bringing their names to light. This made Katsuki and his bullies, unaware at that time, realize that their dreams of becoming heroes would shatter in the future. This brought immense relief to Inko and Izuku, seeing the Bakugo soon move away after being hounded by reporters for hours. Soon, the Midoriyas and Gyros were meeting almost every weekend, either at one of their homes or in the park to play. While playing on a jungle gym, Izuku saw something alarming. "Kyoka-chan, come," he exclaimed, running to his mother's. "Izuku, Kyoka, what's wrong?" "A girl is about to get hit by a car," Izuku gasped. Both mothers, along with their children, rushed to the scene. Izuku realized the girl would be hit in seconds, so he reached out and pushed her out of harm's way. "I'm here." All Might appeared, stopping the criminal, who had a wolf's head. "Do you realize what you almost did?" I. You're chasing me." All Might knocked him out with a blow to the neck. He left him there and turned to the girl with long green hair and a light blue shirt. "Are you okay, little one? What's your name?" "Asui. Suyu," the girl said, standing up with All Might's help. But you just arrived, Ribbit," she said, noticing the kids and women approaching. She approached the children. "Did you help me, Ribbit?" "Why yes," Izuku replied. "I used my repulsion power to prevent you from getting hit," Izuku explained, blushing at the girl's beauty. All Might nodded. "You did well, young man. But remember, wait until you enter hero schools before going to your respective high schools." The children nodded as he grabbed the wolf-headed criminal. "With your permission, I must take this villain away. Good job, by the way." Suyu-chan. A woman with dark green hair and a frog-like appearance, like her daughters, hugged her tightly. "Are you okay, sweetheart, Ribbit?" "I'm okay, Ribbit," the girl affirmed. "This boy saved my life, Ribbit. Thank you." "I'm Jiro Kyoka," the purple-haired girl said, grateful that Izuku had spotted the girl and saved her. "I'm Midoriya Izuku," he said, quite shy. It was obvious to the three mothers, it was the beginning of a new friendship. Izuku, Kyoka, and Suyu quickly became good friends. Izuku and Suyu taught Kyoka some martial arts, and after a couple of years, when they were 11 years old, they started physical training, running, jumping, doing push-ups, and arm exercises. Soon, they found a park not far from their houses that had equipment for physical training instead of regular playgrounds. They could ask people who trained there for help, improving not only their physical fitness but also their quirks. After going to that place for about a month, they met a very enthusiastic and excited girl named Itsuka Kendo, who was into physical training, staying fit, and martial arts. She had turquoise eyes and long ginger hair usually tied in a high ponytail on the left side of her head. Her bangs divided into 3 groups around her eyes, and part of her hair stood in large tufts on top of her head. She came with her friend Setsuna, a girl with dark moss green hair that reached just below her shoulders, and Mina, who was of medium height with light pink skin due to her quirk. They all shared the goal of getting into UA and becoming heroes. The friendship among the 6 blossomed quickly, although sometimes Izuku felt left out by the girls when they talked about K-pop boy bands or makeup and clothes. He only joined the conversation when it was about music or something related to the girls' quirks or heroes. Real heroes had more than one trick up their sleeves, so despite Izuku having many quirks, he learned to fight under Kendo's almost tyrannical instruction, with Kyoka and Mina by his side, as they always relied on their quirks. For Mika and Himiko, it was wonderful to see their daughters have a group of friends, all eager to get into UA, hoping they would succeed together, because Izuku counted too. Although, if Kyoka, Mina, Setsuna, and Suyu were honest, they didn't know if they should invite Kendo. But she never showed any affection towards Izuku, although she was a great friend to him during his second year. For now, they would leave Kendo alone and just guide her as Izuku's friend, and that's it. Kendo would be the closest to Izuku, as she was also a hero fangirl, so that's where their friendship revolved, being heroes fanatics. Mina dragged them all to the mall to see civilian and hero clothes. Kyoka, Mina, Setsuna, Kendo, and Suyu handed Izuku various hero clothes and urged him to try them on in the fitting rooms. They gave opinions on all kinds of shirts, short sleeve, long sleeve, and button-ups. Capes and scarves. Loose pants, skinny pants, and lycra pants. Masks, helmets, and muzzles. Each of them favored a particular clothing item. Kyoka supported the black and green long-sleeve shirt. Mina favored green flare pants. Kendo suggested wearing green and black athletic shoes. Setsuna proposed wearing a flexible but sturdy armor with a comfortable fabric underneath, which Izuku described as feeling like an undershirt beneath his clothes. Tsuyu showed him several masks and helmets. In the end, Tsuyu chose a mask similar to the one her husband used in his different rabbit costumes in the past timeline, a muzzle with a smile, but this time, it was a toothy grin, somewhat dark and a little scary. So, Izuku dressed in the toothy grin muzzle. He wore the armor beneath his black long-sleeve shirt and the green short-sleeve shirt on top. He added a white scarf, green flare pants, and green and black athletic shoes. Over the years, Izuku showed he was one of the smartest students at Aldera High School. He even managed to skip a whole year thanks to his fantastic grades and intelligence. "You all need to start thinking about your future," the teacher said sternly. "Right now, I should be giving you documents about your future aspirations. But hey, most of you want to be heroes, right?" Everyone started using their quirks. Well, you're all good with your respective quirks, but remember that using them goes against the rules. And Midoriya wants to go to UA, right? With your multiple quirks, I think you'll make it. Izuku blushed at the teacher's flattering words and the supportive looks from everyone. Izuku stepped out and was caught up by Kyoka. "Hey Izuku," the purple-haired girl said with a smile. "Are you ready to go to UA?" "I'm getting ready," the green-haired boy assured her as they passed under a bridge. A man made of mud suddenly appeared. "What the heck?" "Wow, a size M invisibility cloak," the man said, lunging at Izuku. He used his Kuroi Muchi to try to restrain him, but being a liquid, it didn't work. "Stay away from him." Kyoka growled, sending sound waves at the man, but it didn't harm him. Seeing they wouldn't hurt him, Izuku began to strike, summoning vampire. The mud creature destabilized the bridge, but Izuku used his gravitational repulsion quirk to bring Kyoka closer, a less powerful Banshu Tenon, and they fled as the bridge collapsed. Kyoka used her sound waves to propel them faster while the bridge collapsed and raised a big smoke cloud. "We're safe." "Yeah, it seems so," but the mud villain emerged from the rubble and trapped Izuku. "Izuku, no," Kyoka shouted. The collapse, the tremor, and Kyoka's scream attracted bystanders and heroes. "I can't grab this guy or hit him," Death Arms growled angrily, unable to grab the villain or help the kid. The villain attacked, and the heroes recoiled. "It's useless. I can't help the kid." "Wasn't All Might chasing that guy?" someone from the crowd asked. "I hope he comes to defeat him so we can see it," someone else said. "I'm running out of breath," Izuku thought as his lungs started to burn. "Come on. Use vampire. No. Not just in your hands. Concentrate it throughout your body." Minutes passed, and few noticed Izuku's iris was now scarlet. Finally, he freed himself enough to breathe and extended his Kuroi Muchi to escape, swinging to a lamppost and gasping for air. "Uck. Bye Kami." Freaky Bird approached Izuku. "Hey kid, you got a great quirk there. When you become a pro, I'll make sure you become my apprentice." Izuku didn't respond immediately, just smiled at Freaky Bird and the others as he descended to stand. "Izuku." Kyoka hugged him from behind. A sound of something hitting the ground echoed, and the floor rumbled. Everyone saw All Might. Texas Smash. With a single blow, he formed a cyclone, clearing the rain clouds and bringing out a bright day. The number one hero approached Izuku and Kyoka. "I'm glad to see you understood the danger and only used your quirk to escape, not to counterattack the enemy, kid. Good job." "Thank you, All Might," Izuku said smiling. As he approached the hero, he signed his shirt and then jumped away. "Awesome." Kyoka and Izuku looked at each other, knowing they would soon go to UA. Finally, after longing for it so much, Izuku was here. He looked beside him and found Kyoka. But she wasn't the only one there. Tsuyu, Mina, Setsuna, and Reiko were there too. The 6 friends, more than ready to enter UA. Every year, at least 1 out of 300 examinees gets in. Of those, in the hero department, only 36 will be selected and divided among the classes in the departments. Besides that, the entire test is chal. Setsuna's hand covered Izuku's mouth as he turned his gaze, only to see 5 girls about to glare him to death. "Izuku, you're making us nervous," Mina spoke up, and Izuku could only nod as they entered the campus. Meeting Present Mike, the hero with spiky hair, leather jacket, and orange glasses, was a dream come true for Izuku. Setsuna had a hand over his mouth to keep him from bothering others, making sure Tenya had nothing to say about her husband. They had to earn points by defeating robot villains and escaping the zero-point giant robot. Easy. A while later, Reiko was with Izuku in City A. When the doors opened, Izuku followed Reiko, who started running, approved by Present Mike, while the other applicants followed them. Every hit of Vampire against the fake villain robots only strengthened Vampire more and more until they destroyed the two robots. 5 points. Reiko floated some debris from the defeated fake villains, destroyed by Izuku, and used them against other villains. 2, 3, 2, and another pair of 2. 10 points, Reiko said. Izuku smiled and caught 4 2-point robots heading towards him with Kuroimuchi, slamming them into each other. 9 points. He reached out and pierced another robot. We're tied, Reiko-chan, he said, smiling. They heard a deafening sound that echoed 3 kilometers around. Looking at each other, Reiko and Izuku headed there, using Izuku's Kuroimuchi, seeing Kyoka surrounded by 10 robots. Since she couldn't speak to Izuku as they were both deaf, Reiko just felt happy for her friend. 6 2-point robots, 5 3.1s. 21 points, it seems. They both descended from the roof and continued searching for robots. When they heard again, they saw Momo-chan. Is Momo-chan taking the lower and middle class exam? Why not enter by recommendation? Izuku lunged at a 3-point robot, and Reiko manipulated all the debris around her, destroying about 5 2-point robots. Setsuna scattered pieces of her body across the battlefield, finding creative ways to hinder or simply shut down the robots. Hagakure Toru did the same, her quirk being invisibility. The exam presented fewer and fewer robots, and finally, the 0-point robot emerged. Everyone started to escape, but a girl named Uraka Ochako stumbled on debris. Seeing this, Izuku grabbed her with his Kuroimuchi and brought her to him. Then, he used his quirk again, climbed the robot, and unleashed a single supercharged punch infused with Vampire, rendering the robot out of commission. A week later, an All Might hologram would notify Izuku that he had indeed entered UA. Izuku's dream crystallized and became a reality. In the morning, they met their curious homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shota, who gave them several tests and threatened them with expulsion on their first day of class: a 50-meter race, long jump, ball throwing, strength gauge, stretching, and other tests. Now, after lunch and after contemporary art with Cementos, it was time for Hero Basic Studies class, with All Might. He asked them to wear their hero costumes. Please feel this, All Might asked, smiling at his students. You are heroes from now on, and always remember, this will be the most important class of your lives. Sensei, Momo stopped All Might. Izuku-kun is still missing. Then, the professional hero and lousy teacher realized that was true. Oh, indeed they are, he began to say. They heard a loud, unnatural sound. Everyone looked up, over that tunnel they had come from, finding a green-haired boy dressed in a black long-sleeved shirt with a green short-sleeved shirt over it. A white scarf. Green flare pants and green and black athletic shoes. Resting on his neck was his toothy smile muzzle. Obviously, the armor was not visible. Izuku leapt from there and fell before them. I'm very sorry for the delay. Just in time, Midoriya Shonen, said All Might. Now, here behind me, as you can see, I have a wheel of fortune with your names. So I'll draw names randomly, and you'll make pairs of heroes or villains in real battles. Without any prior training? Tsuyu asked, truly upset that they didn't have anyone supervising All Might's classes. He was a fabulous hero, but truly, he was awful as a teacher. I hope Izuku doesn't end up against Bakugo, or I'm going to make his life a living hell. Both of those idiots. There's no better training than real life, said All Might. I'm glad we met Kendo-san, Tsuyu thought, unconsciously crossing her arms. Now at least, Izuku knows how to fight and can use Vampire more efficiently. And now, the first team of villains will be. He spun the wheel until it stopped at a name. Midoriya Shonen. And. He spun it again. Yaoyorozu Shoujo. And against you, as heroes, will go. He spun it. Ita Shonen. And. Todoroki Shonen. Villains then, huh? Said Momo, approaching the boy who had inspired her so much and whom she was in love with. I didn't expect this, Izuku admitted. I think we should act a bit, like in a play, since we're villains and have Ita-san and Todoroki-san act as heroes. I like that idea, said Momo, smiling with bright eyes. Then they saw the other teams of heroes and villains getting ready. The situation will be as follows, and the girls of the future bit their tongues to avoid giving away information they, supposedly, didn't have. All Might read from a paper he had tucked away somewhere. The villains have hidden a nuclear bomb somewhere. The heroes must confront the villains and capture them with these capture bands. All Might handed out capture bands to each group of heroes, before time runs out and the bomb is detonated. Izuku and Momo went first to look for the fake bomb they were supposed to protect. Can you tell me a bit about your kosei, Yaoyorozu-san? Izuku asked. My kosei, Izuku-kun. She didn't notice her own slip. But she did notice the green-haired boy's blush, who quickly covered his face with his mask, which was now shining because of the blush. It's called creation, and I use the lipids from my body to create almost anything. But the bigger or more complex the object, the harder it is to create. We don't know much about Todoroki-san or Ida-san, except that one uses ice and the other is very fast, said Izuku. I would suggest that if you can create something like grenades containing cobalt hydroxyfluoride benzodiazepam, we could. And it would help us melt Todoroki's ice. Momo was interrupted when a sound like a bell was heard. The heroes have entered, and she began creating the bomb she had just talked to her husband about. Here comes Todoroki's ice, Izuku said to his wife. Though he was unaware that she had feelings for him, less than a day after meeting. The ice froze their legs, but Izuku freed his kuromuchi and used them as real whips or spears, shattering the ice covering the ground as he struck it. I'll go for Todoroki and Ida. When you're ready, throw one. Momo nodded. To destroy Todoroki's ice, understood. Seeing him go, she sighed. Why didn't I tell you how important you were to me the first time we had the chance to talk, my Izuku-kun? Izuku was climbing the walls using kuromuchi to swing, thus avoiding the frozen ground, while searching for his rivals. Midoriya-kun? Ida asked, surprised by Izuku's appearance. The green-haired boy lunged at the boy in armor. First gear. Ida's blow should have been fatal to Izuku, but it wasn't. Instead, he received a powerful blow from Vampire, starting Izuku to drain his energy. When Todoroki went to attack, Izuku deployed his kuromuchi to prevent him from creating more ice, forcing him to back off and using his kosei to destroy the already formed ice. But Ida went against him, catching him. And Todoroki, thinking everything was under control, passed by him while continuing to freeze the ground and walls. Without even expecting it, Ida was sent flying with repulsion. But how? Izuku put his hand to his ear. Yaoyorozu-san, Todoroki-san is trying to come for you, he's freezing the ground and walls, use it now. What thing to use, villain? Ida asked, embodying a hero. Izuku stood up and floated above his head. The bomb they came to stop, Metal Knight, Grand Elemental, is not an ordinary bomb. Izuku had just entered his role. What are you saying, evildoer? Ida hoped he was doing well in his hero role. Izuku tried to let out an evil laugh, but it didn't work. Oh, foolish. Little Metal Knight Baka, he mocked. He truly tried with all his might to embody a villain, as he extended his arms and looked at Ida and Todoroki. Did you really think this would be like all our previous battles? The bomb contains a formula of cobalt hydroxyfluoride benzodiazepam. All beings who breathe on the face of the earth will die from apparent spontaneous human combustion. Monitoring room. Man, Midoriya is really doing a good job as a villain, with an evil monologue and all, said Sero, amazed. It's truly surprising, Ribbit, said Tsuyu. And these are situations they will encounter throughout their lives as heroes. All Might spoke for both those in the room and those in the building, with villains seemingly having the upper hand in combat. But as you must know. Back to the fight. Heroes must not give up in the face of adversity or villain conspiracies. Ida completed All Might's words. Engine boost. He accelerated and went against Izuku. Izuku was surrounded by a scarlet aura, his eyes turned red. Vricoladio. To the amazement of Ida and Todoroki, Izuku was able to kick Ida with great force. What did you do, Midoriya? Asked a confused Ida. I feel tired. It's Vampire's trait, Metal Knight. Izuku didn't break character as a villain. And that was something to admire, along with his calmness. I take all the resistance, the vigor, the wakefulness from my victims. Causing them tiredness and sleepiness. Let's see what you do now, villain, said Todoroki, closing his eyes and throwing his ice at him, only for it to melt, making him open his eyes. Izuku smiled, and in that moment of Todoroki's doubt, he released his kuromuchi, tying him up. Professor Creative has released a grenade that has covered the entire building with cobalt hydroxyfluoride benzodiazepam gas. You can't freeze anything. Todoroki clenched his fists before letting go and sighing defeated. You're very good, Midoriya. They won the fight, Thanks to Izuku's quick thinking, not thanks to the confrontation. What has the peace symbol taught them? Izuku froze for a moment at the interviewer's question. Well. All Might. He teaches us, the heroics department students. Having him in class is a blessing because he teaches us many things. Just yesterday, we had our first combat training class. And today, a hand rested on Izuku's shoulder, and turning, he saw his friend Yanagi Reiko. The girl with short gray hair and bangs looked at the reporters. I think Izuku-kun has already answered your question. As for us, from Class 1B, he also taught us combat training, but we have other classes to attend, she said, leading him inside the building. After several hours of regular classes like history, literature, mathematics, and more, Aizawa stood before them. Yaoyorozu and Midoriya, you both did an excellent job yesterday, defeating your enemies and with Midoriya playing his role well. You have great control over your quirks. Izuku nodded. Still, I didn't allow Yaoyorozu-san to shine, sensei. The training paid off. She created what you asked for and they protected the bomb in their own way, so she did shine, Aizawa contradicted. For today's Hero Basic Skills class, it will be taught by 3 teachers, All Might, another teacher, and myself. Sensei, what are we going to do? Hanta asked. Aizawa then showed a card with the word rescue on it, written in a comic-style font. Rescue, floods, natural disasters, and accidents on roads. But for now, enjoy your class with Midnight. Then the intercom buzzed. All heroics department teachers, please report to the teachers' lounge. Aizawa left the classroom, and among Izuku, Momo, and Tenya, they kept everyone calm. All the teachers were gathered in the teachers' lounge. In the director's hands, a curly wire was held. When I entered my office, I found this stuck in the floor in front of my desk. With this note, he handed it to the teachers. Aizawa's eyes widened. Are they going to attack the USJ? If we don't proceed with the class, then the villains will know we have the information, the director said. And that could only lead to an even bigger terrorist attack, Snipe said. I'll go on the bus with the kids. We'll all go, Vlad King growled. We can't all go, Ectoplasm said, they might attack other areas of the school. Ectoplasm, send as many clones as you can, All Might requested. Midnight, Snipe, Eraserhead, Present Mike, and I will be present for the worst case scenario. We'll need help from outside personnel. Let's try contacting Death Arms, maybe people like Mirko, Ryukyu, Rock Lock, Edgeshot, or Kamui Woods. Call them all immediately, the director ordered. We need to set a trap for these villains if it's true. Otherwise, I'll pay the 5 of you for the trouble and. A dark smile appeared on the director's lips, I'll force you to give rescue lectures for the next 5 months. When Aizawa returned, he found them all in their hero costumes. Let's go. There's a lot to do today. Decide if you'll go with your hero costumes or your uniforms. Sometimes, costumes can be a problem. Everyone followed the man as he walked ahead. Get on the bus. We'll leave campus, as the director decided to build the USJ in a somewhat remote location. I always speak my mind, Tsuyu began her role moments after they started their journey. Momo, Tsuyu, Kyoka, and Mina had alerted the teachers and couldn't believe they were still on their way to the USJ. Midoriya-kun, your quirk is a bit similar to All Might's, isn't it? And not exactly, Tsuyu-san. Call me Tsuyu-chan, she requested. Seriously, she really hoped that, this time, her husband would listen to her about that. I take the energy that keeps people awake, or I can just tire them out or even weaken them, depending on my choice, and that's what will happen when they come into contact with my hands or fists, Izuku explained. That's why it's called vampire. You have an interesting enhancing quirk, Midoriya, Eijiro said smiling as he extended his arm. I just harden my body. I can throw punches with force, but it's not an increase, so I rely on my hardness and physical strength. From a certain point of view, being a hero is like a popularity contest, Mina said. So, Izuku would win, thanks to his multiple quirks, or it could also be Todoroki-kun, with his ice. We're arriving, Aizawa announced as he got off first and then the others. It's Hero 13, Ochako said excitedly. She's an expert in rescuing. Hello, young ones, Ectoplasm said. We, Midnight, Snipe, Eraserhead, Present Mike, All Might, along with Death Arms, Mirko, Ryukyu, Rock Lock, Edgeshot, Kamui Woods, and I, will give you recommendations, examples, drills, and talks about combat and rescue. The youngsters marveled at the sight of a total of 13 heroes gathered. Hello, young ones. All Might said, smiling and happy to see his students. I arrived in 3 jumps and solved 6 cases on the way to UA, only to find out the class was at USJ. 13 started the conference, ignoring the heroes, who were attentive to any problem or attack. Many of you probably have quirks prepared for combat or dangerous quirks, like my black hole, with which I absorb debris and allow me to save people, 13 said, but I'm aware that it's a quirk that can easily kill. With All Might, you learned about the effect of your quirks on others. Many of you have quirks like that, and with us, you'll learn to use them to save others. And now, let's go inside. Everyone marveled at what they saw. The facilities were fantastic, only for the light to suddenly go out, the fountain to fail, a portal to open, and a villain with grayish-blue hair to emerge from the portal, with many severed hands grabbing him by the arms, waist, torso, and one final hand over his face, like a mask. What? The man with the hands wondered. Why are there so many professionals here? It should only be Eraserhead. Are they extras for us to rescue? Hanta asked innocently. We're sorry to put you in this situation, Aizawa said, putting on his goggles, but we knew an attack would happen here. Someone leaked the information, and we gathered these heroes to help us get rid of the villains. You're also heroes. In training. Perhaps, and first-year ones, but you're heroes. Ectoplasm's clones immediately attacked the villains. Izuku used his repulsion and extended his hands. Then remembered something from a very famous manga. Shinra Tensei. The villains went flying. He adjusted his mask and charged forward. Soon, thanks to Momo's creation, Kyoka held a pair of nunchucks, Tsuyu had some sei, Ochako wielded tonfas, Rikido took a pair of brass knuckles, and Shoji did the same with 6 knuckles for himself. Mirko jumped alongside the other heroes and began kicking heads, even before her rabbit legs touched the ground. Eraserhead started erasing quirks, trapping villains with his capture cloth and striking them. Present Mike shouted, leaving his enemies unconscious. Edge Shot transformed his body into paper swords and slashed at the villains, while Snipe fired. Rocklock immobilized the villains by touching them. Ryukyu terrified them with her dragon transformation. Meanwhile, the man with the hands remained back, observing the combat. God, these pros are such a hassle. The mobs don't stand a chance against them. And yet, there are too many pros. He began scratching his neck, annoyed and stressed. Nomu, a large-sized villain with exposed brain, bird beak, violet skin, and scarred all over, advanced toward his master, attacked the blonde giant. The students also joined the battle, with Hanta tying up the villains and Izuku swinging through the air with Kuroimuchi, luring them towards him before using Vampire to make them fall asleep and gently lowering them to the ground. Shigaraki Tomura, said the villain who brought them there. Whose body of Kurogiri was a dark mist with intimidating eyes. He wore a stylish suit with buttons, tie, and 5 metal plates from his collarbones to his chin. His villain costume was even simpler, just a wide shadow with 5 metal plates. That boy. The one who seems to knock out our allies with just 1 or 2 punches. I see. Nomu, the boy in the green suit, now, said Shigaraki. Izuku, can you defeat that giant violet guy, right? Momo asked. Yes, Momo-chan, Izuku said confidently. I have the perfect amount of energy to give him a good couple of hits, and I'll be able to drain it from him. Keep him busy, I'm sending All Might, said Momo. By the way, after defeating him, I want you to talk to the man with the hands. I have plenty of information about that guy, and I want you to sound as confident as you can. For what purpose? Izuku asked. To mess with his head, replied his future wife. When Nomu stood before Izuku, he threw a charged punch that didn't budge him. Nice try, kid, said Shigaraki, but Nomu has impact absorption. You won't be able to. Izuku threw a punch charged with his own wake energy, managing to move him. What the hell? Shigaraki asked, in total shock, with his eyes wide. Vampire, not only can I force people to sleep, or kill them by extracting their life energy, but also, for every blow I connect with my enemy, I can deal more damage, thought Izuku, smiling, before following Nomu and starting to land blow after blow, absorbing his opponent's vigilance and strengthening himself, then releasing another super punch and moving him again, so every blow in a series of 5 will be stronger than the last. Until the 5th blow, which will be the most powerful. I can also store the damage from the previous 5 blows and focus it into a super punch. Izuku dodged the blows he could, used Kuromuchi and tied up the villain, making him scream before crouching down and Empire battering ram, giving him an uppercut to the chin, sending him through the roof. Momo handed Denji a gun loaded with his own lightning bolts to electrocute his enemies. Kyoka charged her nunchucks with vibrations from her heart, connecting her earlobes, allowing her to hit harder and knock out her enemies. Mina, Eijiro, and Rikito worked as a team. They burned and punched the portal villain, rendering him unconscious from the pain of the acid and the blows. All Might and Death Arms made their way through the villains, with strength and speed. Momo used a net launcher to trap several enemies. She brought her right hand to her ear communicator. Izuku, tell the man with the hands the following. Izuku wasn't entirely sure what Momo was trying to achieve, but he focused on that man. The apparent leader, your master. The villain Shigaraki Tomura looked at the boy before him, started acting strange some time ago, Izuku said in an almost unfamiliar manner. He didn't give you any explanations. Tomura narrowed his eyes. The plans had some changes, right? Perhaps he's not as fatherly as before, right? You. How do you know? Shigaraki Tomura asked, shocked. How can a mere brat know about sensei? That's because All for One succumbed to the wounds left by All Might and his teacher 6 years ago, Izuku pretended to reveal. At the same time, All Might and Aizawa were nearby and recognized the name, wondering how someone as young as their student knew it. Then someone else took his title and has been guiding you. Perhaps it's the doctor. Izuku extended Kuroi Muchi, tied up Tomura, and lifted him into the air, ascending with him. Let me go, you damn brat. The young villain ordered, struggling. I'll kill you and find out what else you know about sensei. I've told you everything I know, and as for being free. I don't think so. Izuku approached him and punched him, naturally triggering the super punch, showing no mercy to his enemy until he passed out more from pain than from vampire, being brought down by Izuku. Who are you? Tomura asked, having a moment of consciousness. I am Miracle. A figure with a hand over their face emerged from a portal, staining both their hand and the carpet of what seemed to be some sort of bar. Damn. Damn you. Miracle. We were completely defeated. But how? How did UA know? Only they could have called so many professionals, so many former students. Even the Nomu the doctor gave us was finished off by that brat. It wasn't even All Might, but that kid. How is it possible? Why does he have so many quirks? Our minions were finished off instantly. We weren't prepared for so many professionals. The kids were like ants. All Might didn't even have to intervene in the main fight, he just defeated our minions. Miracle. Damn you. I guess I was too optimistic about our victory. A voice came from a television screen, displaying the words only sound. Before this day, for Shigaraki Tomura, that voice filled his soul, as All for One was the one who rescued and trained him, who sent Kurogiri to look after him, and who gave him a new purpose in life. But now, that kid knew too much, he couldn't be wrong. Could he? At least the fame of the League of Villains will rise from now on, and you managed to deliver your message, as the cameras were filming everything that happened and a couple of hackers were sending the information to all the TVs and screens in the country, as well as the main TV channels. Neither Shigaraki nor Kurogiri said anything. Words of that kid Miracle and the certainty with which he spoke were running through their heads. Could he be wrong? Yes. But what if he wasn't? So, it seems we failed. What happened to the Nomu? Shigaraki remained silent for a few seconds before speaking. That brat, who called himself Miracle, sent it flying with a very powerful punch, surpassing the impact absorption the doctor gave the Nomu, Shigaraki recounted finally. So, whether or not he was their sensei, he gave the most important information. Also, he presented more than one quirk. The person on the other end of the television fell silent for a moment. Did you see how many quirks this student had? He asked interestedly. Or how he used them. Super strength to defeat the Nomu, some kind of black ropes, flight, and gravity control or telekinesis. He sent several soldiers flying with just a gesture of his hand, Kurogiri said. He tied me up, went flying, and I went with him, then he hit me many times, growled Shigaraki. Who was on the other side of the television? Was it his sensei or someone else? That kid Miracle knew too much to be just a hoax. That green-haired kid was completely sure of every word that came out of his mouth. That's why I'm so badly hurt. Who the hell was on the other side of that television? Then, another voice came, but from a radio. What happened to that job of sensei's and mine? He asked. Won't it be recovered? It went flying and without knowing its location, so searching for it will be completely useless, Kurogiri explained to the fake leader and the doctor. Teleporting from one place to another to look for it would only lead to some hero discovering me, and if I'm not careful, I could even be captured. That damn brat. Tomura spun around, falling onto his back, causing even greater pain. Miracle. Lamenting is useless, said the evil leader and provider of Shigaraki. Our effort was not entirely in vain. We need a group of people loyal to your ideals, Tomura-kun, and who have useful quirks, instead of going from one place to another in search of. U8 Teacher's Lounge. The typical alleyway villains. I found no information on Shigaraki Tomura, nor on Kurogiri or a teleportation quirk, said a police officer, holding a report. Someone knocked on the door. Come in, said the principal. The door opened, and the teachers looked surprised. Sniper, the teacher in cowboy attire with a gas mask, spoke up. Yaoyorozu, Jiro, Asui, Ashido, Tokage, Yanagi? What are you doing at the school today? Asked Professor Midnight, as surprised as all the other teachers. Yaoyorozu took the lead. It was us who warned you about what would happen at the USJ, she confessed, bravely. More than one raised an eyebrow or dropped their jaw, amazed. We come from over 20 years in the future, transporting our minds to this present, to prevent the acts of Shigaraki Tomura and his leader, as well as adoptive father. All for one. All Might, in his skinny form, got up from his chair, in disbelief, upon hearing that name/quirk name. No, it was impossible. That guy was dead, he had killed him. But no one could understand it, at least unless they had experienced it firsthand. Yaoyorozu created chairs for them. 10 months before the UA exam, All Might and Izuku would meet. All Might would initially tell Izuku that being a hero without a quirk was impossible and that he should give up. All the teachers looked at All Might with considerable anger, giving him a shiver. An hour later, All Might, Death Arms, and other heroes would witness Izuku trying to rescue Bakugo from the clutches of a slime villain, and in response, All Might would train him by cleaning up the garbage at Dagoba Beach, so that he would inherit One for All, having very poor control over it, until the first-year internships. We ended up in the middle of quite a few hero and villain battles, allowing us to have a better view of the future, and during our second year, with the League of Villains and the Liberation Army of Quirks Alliance, then we had to go to war. Izuku managed to manipulate all the quirks within One for All and fight Shigaraki and All for One, who had merged into one. In the end, Izuku sacrificed the quirk, allowing the consciousnesses of the former bearers of Ofa and the consciousnesses of the bearers of the thousands of Ofo quirks to attack their user and kill him. Tears welled up in the eyes of Momo, Mina, Tsuyu, Kyoka, Setsuna, and Reiko. Izuku died, sacrificing himself, so that neither All for One nor Shigaraki could harm anyone again. When society could rebuild itself. We six created various businesses, and realizing how much we loved Izuku, we called ourselves as widows. I then built a time machine, but it didn't make sense to travel to the past, being adults. I modified it so that only our consciousnesses would travel and gave Izuku nanobots, which gave him his current powers. The tears dried up. Shigaraki Tomura is the grandson of Shimura Nana, a former bearer of All Might's One for All. His father was cruel to him. The stress of that life caused him to develop his quirk, decay. Please, said Nezu. We will need all the information you have about this League of Villains. They provided the identities of all the most prominent members, and both present Mike and Aizawa were horrified to learn that this guy Kurogiri was the corpse of their friend Shirakumo Oboro, turned into a Nomu. We have all the names and of the allied criminal groups. We must speak to Aoyama-kun and Hagakure-chan to change their minds or lock them up. We must move cautiously so that All for One doesn't know anything about this. Cementos, begin the construction of the dormitories. Right away, sir, said Cementos, leaving the room. The school was closed for a week, and letters were sent to the parents. All Might, Aizawa, and every teacher went to visit the students' homes to ask them, and explain to them, about the new plan to protect the students, a boarding school and the hiring of a squad of professionals, as well as the latest technology. When the students returned to class, they were amazed and ashamed that so many people recognized them on the street. They barely realized that someone leaked the footage on the internet. Momo reasoned that it was the result of a plan gone wrong by the villains, who surely wanted to make UA look bad by showing that they couldn't even protect their own students. They talked about the boarding school, and all of Class 1A would be in these new dormitories and about the new security. I'm glad all of your parents agreed to have you come to this boarding school, said Aizawa, bandaged up like a mummy. Aizawa-sensei, you're back too soon. Practically everyone said. Don't worry about me. Remember that your path as heroes continues despite what happened at the USJ, said Aizawa. Everyone looked serious at this. The battle isn't over yet. The UA Sports Festival will take place in 2 weeks, so use this time to prepare as best as you can. But isn't it an event that would fall apart after what happened with the villains? Asked Rikido unsure, after what happened at the USJ. Before, the biggest event was the Olympics, but with the emergence of quirks and hero academies, that became the duty of the UA Sports Festival, said Aizawa to his students. They will look at us to recruit us in the second year, said Momo. Naturally, entering a famous hero agency will give you high status and more experience, said Aizawa. Remember, time is limited. If you are noticed by professionals of the highest rank, then you will have better opportunities in your field training and internships. It's an annual opportunity and no more. 3 years at UA, only 3 chances. If you aspire to be heroes, then you cannot overlook this.